What is Bitcoin and why so much of hype? The current price of Bitcoin is approximately $15,000. And if you convert that into Indian currency, it comes out to be 1.1 million rupees. Last year in March, the price was approximately $1,000 and now it is Jan 2018 and the price is 15. So you can imagine the exponential growth of from 1 to 15. So in this video, we'll talk about what is Bitcoin and why it's so important now. Welcome back aliens, my name is Navin Reddy and let's get started. So what is Bitcoin? So Bitcoin is basically a currency which is digital and which uses cryptography, and that's why we also term it as a digital cryptocurrency. Now when you think about cryptography, you always think about encryption, right? So to be specific, in cryptography we use this asymmetric cryptography where you have two keys, the private and public one. Now we use this public key to encrypt data so that we can use private key to decrypt. But then we don't use cryptography in Bitcoin to achieve secretness. We use cryptography in Bitcoin to achieve authentication. How do you know if you transfer money, who is transferring it? And that's where we use this cryptography concept. But again, we'll come back to that. But before that, let's talk about the history of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is invented in 2008 by a pseudonym called as Satoshi Nakamoto. From that time, there's so much of development is happening in the Bitcoin world. Bitcoin is open source, and that means the volunteers worldwide, they are contributing to the Bitcoin technology. It's not just a currency, it's a whole set of new technology we can use. If you want to know more about the code format of Bitcoin, just go to GitHub and search for Bitcoin. There's a huge repository for Bitcoin, and every 5 or 1 week, there's a new update to the Bitcoin network. Bitcoin is also a technology. So what it has? So it has 4 parts. The first one, it is a decentralized peer-to-peer network, which is also your Bitcoin protocol. The second one, it maintains a public ledger. Now again, we'll talk about that ledger, how to build that ledger. But of course, right, we need a ledger so that we can maintain all the transactions. And then we have some set of rules, which we also call them as consensus rules. The fourth one is the proof of work. How can you make sure the transaction is complete? How can you authenticate it? Now, if you go back to the first point, which is peer-to-peer network, Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer network, which also means that we don't have any central body. Example, in real world, if you want to send a message now, we use peer-to-peer network. If you want to play an online game, we use peer-to-peer network. But what about online transaction? We use a bank in between, right? Even if you are using a online wallet to transfer money, we still have a bank in between. And Bitcoin says no more banks. You can transfer money from one place to another place by using a peer-to-peer network. Now, how exactly Bitcoin looks like? Something like this? No. What about this one? Exactly. Bitcoin looks like this. That is nothing. You cannot see Bitcoin, you cannot touch Bitcoin because it's nothing in real world. The Bitcoin only works in virtual world. As I mentioned before, as I always mention, we are aliens, right? We live in virtual world and Bitcoin is a currency for the aliens. So what can you do with Bitcoin? You can buy products, you can sell products, and you can convert that Bitcoin into a real currency, and you can convert a real currency into a Bitcoin. But question arises, how can you buy a Bitcoin? Let's say if you want to buy a Bitcoin now, how can you buy it? So you want to buy a Bitcoin, you have to pay $15,000. And we don't have that much of an amount now. What can you do? Can we buy, so let's say if you have $10 now, if you have $1 now, can you buy a Bitcoin? And the answer is yes. Because the smallest unit of a Bitcoin is also called as Satoshi. So it's 100 million Satoshi is 1 Bitcoin. So if you want to convert that into $1, so if you have only $1 now, you can buy approximately 6,500 Satoshi. And if you have 1 rupee, don't worry, you can still buy 100 Satoshi. Now question arises, who create Bitcoins? Because in real world, we have authority who will print money, right? But what about Bitcoins? Now Bitcoins are created by a process called as mining. And what is mining? And who will do the mining? So mining is done by miners. Now the question would be, who are miners? Now to understand this, let's go back to the transaction. Let's say if you want to transfer money. So if a person A wants to transfer money to person B, now in this case, you are transferring a Bitcoin, right? Now, of course, there should be someone who will do the analysis of this code. So if you transfer money or if you transfer Bitcoin from A to B, every transaction will be a part of a block, right? So let's say at this point, let's say in this 2 seconds, we have 100 people who are doing transactions. So we have 100 transactions. You can combine all those transactions, you can put that in a block. Now this block will have lot of mathematical problems, or it will be having one big puzzle. Now the question is, who will solve the puzzle? And if you can solve that puzzle, that is what is you call as a mining. So you need huge computers. You cannot do it by your brain, okay? You cannot look at those puzzles and say, okay, this is the answer. It will take a lot of time. You can do that. We are superpower, right? Humans are superpower. So we can do anything, but then we need huge computers who can solve this problem. And when you say a computer, you also need a dedicated CPU and a GPUs as well. So nowadays people buy GPUs to solve that problem. And if you can solve that problem, you will be called as a miner. And we have so many people around the world who are miners. So every block, so let's say the moment I do a transaction, that transaction will be a part of a big block, and that block will be broadcasted throughout the network to all the miners, right? So let's say if you have 1,000 miners in the world now, they all will be getting this block. But question arises, why they will mine this? So what they will do is they will try to calculate, they will solve the puzzle, and whoever solves the puzzle first, they will win. But then what you will get after winning? You will get bitcoins. So currently you'll be getting 12.5 bitcoins per block transaction, right? So if you win in the block, you'll be getting 12.5. Again, this will change in future. So how do you generate bitcoins? By mining. So every time you solve a block, you generate new bitcoins. So you will get a reward of those bitcoins, because of course, right, if you are giving your computer for processing it, you are wasting so much of resources like electricity to buy those hardwares, then of course you want some reward, right? And you get bitcoins. Now, can you be a miner? Of course you can be. So what you have to do is you have to buy hardware, you have to build the stack, the protocol stack, which we have talked about. You can build that stack and you can be a miner. Now question arises, can you trust Bitcoin? What if you do a transaction and if something goes wrong, can you get your money back? And the answer is no. In real world, when you use credit card, when we use debit card, we can actually roll back the transaction. In Bitcoin, you cannot do that, because we don't have any central authority, right? So the only way to get your money back is by talking to that person who you have sent the amount. So if you have transferred the amount to B and you can ask B, hey, please return my bitcoins to me. So you cannot get your money back. But why? What is happening behind the scene? So what happens is with the block which we have talked about, so let's say we have 100 transactions, that 100 transaction becomes a part of a block. Now this block becomes a part of a blockchain. So in this world, we have a public ledger, which is a blockchain. Now what is blockchain? A series of blocks. Every time you do a transaction, that becomes a part of a block, and that block will be assigned to a blockchain. So we have a big blockchain there, and your new block will be attached to this blockchain. Now, how can you guarantee that your transaction is done? Now, more transactions, let's say after 10 minutes, we have some more transactions. Let's say after 1 hour, you are doing some more transactions. So in that 1 hour, globally, if you are completing 6 blocks, because one block will be solved in 10 minutes, right? So if you have 100 transactions, if it is part of one block, so one block will be solved, or the problem will be solved in 10 minutes, right? And if you in 1 hour, you'll be having 6 blocks. So once you complete those 6 blocks, now you can guarantee that your transaction is complete. So that's how you build trust in the Bitcoin world. And the trust is built thanks to the concept of blockchain. Now, I'm not saying Bitcoin is the biggest thing, but then it's a technology which will change in future, or which will change the future, because blockchain and Bitcoin is not only for the currency. They can be implemented at different places as well. Example, they can be maintained for the government officials, where we can also implement that in a voting system, and we can also implement that with hospitals, with Google searches, and it will be getting implemented in future in all the places. I hope you got some idea about Bitcoin from this video. Let me know in the comment section if you have liked it and if what more you want in the content. I will try to make one more video on this about in detail how exactly Bitcoin works in the future. So yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed. Click on the like button and do subscribe for further videos, everyone.